It might be difficult for us to imagine as we move past this fence that obscures our vision, but there are stories being told at this site along North Stone Avenue downtown.
To date, we have documented about 1,065 graves in the project area.
The stories are of individuals that inhabited our area in the 1800s and came to be buried in what was then known as the National Cemetery.
It's just an amazing slice of Tucson history that it's really unique. I mean, it was Tucson's only cemetery during the period it was being used for roughly a 20-year period and early in the territorial period.
The stories reveal a society that is defined by the meeting of different cultures.
It's diverse. So there have been other large cemeteries, not many, but a few other large cemeteries that have been excavated in the United States. But the difference of this one is that it represents a diverse population.
That is one of the most fascinating issues at this project, because Tucson started out as a Spanish and then a Mexican settlement, and it was only in the mid-19th century that it became part of the United States, and there was an influx of people from primarily the eastern part of the United States, a different ethnic community, and there was a long process of mixing that took place.
The site is designated as the future location of the joint Tucson-Pima County Court building. But before construction could begin, the project requires that the cemetery be excavated, analyzed, and all remains relocated and buried appropriately.
Surprises of the archival research was that
this task has been the job of Scott Omack, and for him, the project has been one filled with wonder.
One of the biggest discoveries has been just how much of the cemetery was still in place, still intact, despite 130 years of development on the site.
The site has revealed a lot about the people that are buried here, but it has also provided information about the society that lived, worked, and played on top of the cemetery.
The cemetery was officially closed by the city in 1875. A small portion of it, devoted to military burials, remained open until 1881. But in the 1880s, after the military cemetery had also closed, the city decided to subdivide the property and sell it off to private parties. And by 1890, the sale of all of the lots had taken place and people began to develop the area residentially. So from about 1890 until the 1930s, the project area was part of the residential district of downtown Tucson. There were houses built directly atop the cemetery throughout the project area. And then after the 1930s, it really started to shift toward a commercial zone with a lot of commercial construction. There was a bowling alley, car dealerships, eventually banks, a large tire and auto dealer on the north end, and a few houses remained in the area into the 60s. But all of this was happening directly atop the cemetery.
Many might wonder how it is that a community can decide to build upon what many of us today would consider sacred ground.
So why didn't they move them? I mean, that's the question. The notices were posted. Why didn't they move them? Well, there are a bunch of reasons. Number one, they may not have seen the notices. Number two, they might not have believed the notices. Do I really think this little town is going to move that far north? Number three, they may not have had the resources. It's a big logistic issue. Even if I have a little bit of money, who is it that I go to help me move somebody? It's not like today, and even today it's not an easy thing to put together. But do I go ask my uncle to come to the cemetery with me and dig somebody up and move them? And then also there was a different view where people felt that if you put somebody in a cemetery, they should stay there. And I don't think a lot of people really believed that this was going to happen. So for all of those issues, including the one that many people just didn't see the notices, it got built on.
The information that has been uncovered here says a lot about early Tucson. And for the individuals that are involved in the Joint Courts Project, as it's currently known, much of the work remains to be done during the analysis of the data.
Our interests are in trying to understand the age and sex distribution of the population, which will help us to understand perhaps things like life expectancies, and also the health status of the population of this time in Tucson.
The relocation and proper burial of nearly 1,000 distinct human remains will go a long way in providing a respectful closure for these early inhabitants. and in the process, our community will gain a more thorough understanding of the origins of our unique city.
It's something that will never be found again in Tucson. It's a unique source on the diverse population of Tucson at that time, both in biological terms and cultural terms.
Now, as we move past this fence, we can take a moment to contemplate the history upon which our city is built and think about the future stories that will be told here. For KUAT, I'm Luis Carrion.